Now, I just made a short video about this, but I wanted to make a longer video because I'm so incredibly fascinated by everything happening in our garden. Now, I will warn you, it's very windy today. It's not supposed to rain until Wednesday evening, but the sky looks so dark, so we might get some rain after all. We got a couple of small sprinkles earlier. See that?
No wonder.
I know, I see it. My son's so entertained because there are so many different insects on here. I see fire ants, I see other types of ants. I have seen a fly harvesting aphids, which I've never seen before. And I came out because I was hanging out in my garden earlier and I saw this ladybug, also known as a ladybird in some places, harvesting aphids. At the time, it was actively eating the aphids. That doesn't look to be quite the case right now. But it was munching down. It was so cool to watch. I'm so sad that I missed that part. But all of these little green things that you see covering my plant, those are not supposed to be there. Those are aphids, and there are a lot of aphids here for early in the season, but it's a little warm already here in Southeast Texas. And these are the new tender buds and flowers showing up on our blackberry plants. So I'm not surprised that there are aphids. Now, the downside is that aphids do have a tendency to carry diseases, and that can negatively affect plants such as black raspberries that are way more sensitive to diseases carried by aphids, whereas yellow raspberries, red raspberries, and particularly this blackberry bush that I'm growing are different. Now, these blackberries are a mix of the Arkansas Traveler blackberries and the Primark blackberries, both cultivated by Arkansas State University. They are both thornless varieties. I've shown them before, and they're producing both white and pink flowers, some of them on the same bush, which is amazing. But when you're a new gardener, you start out freaking out over these plants and all of the aphids. I did, and I look for neem oil and everything else, and some people still use that, but I prefer not to because it can negatively affect insects and other animals such as birds, such as this ladybird. It could hurt it so that you don't have those pollinators and that natural pest control in your garden anymore, and that is something that worries me. So I did try to avoid that. Another thing that bothers me is during the Texas heat, if you use neem oil and it gets too hot, you can severely scorch your plants. That's something I learned the hard way. And then it wasn't really as effective as I thought it would be. So I found that creating habitats where insects and birds that naturally may not eat your plants but will eat the pests growing on your plants are a great way to keep pests out of your garden or control and manage pests. You're not going to have a pest-free garden if you're gardening naturally, if you're not spraying constantly, but you will have a garden that has pests managed. I have seen so many comments on pest control and why I don't spray and do this, and some of my turnips have holes in it and other things. Yes, they do, because they're grown naturally, because we've been led to believe that food is perfectly shaped and perfectly colored. In reality, what we're doing is we're wasting a large amount of food. I say animals, I'm sorry, distracted by all of these animals. We're wasting a large amount of food found in farms and gardens because the food that is not perfect gets thrown out, and then you find the really pretty food in grocery stores. That's why so many of companies are kind of capitalizing on that, saying that real food is imperfect, because it is. And growing food, there's going to be a lot of imperfections in it. I mean, look at this. I have aphids, ants, flies, and I see 1, 2, 3 ladybugs on this plant, and that's just in one small section. So you can see that there's a lot going on right here just on this plant. And look, they are actively creating new ladybugs. Isn't that crazy? But my food is healthy, the plants are healthy, and I'm really excited. And nothing is more exciting when you're gardening like this than to see animals and insects come and help you manage your garden without you having to do anything. I don't have to come out here and squish all of these and everything else. An adult ladybug can eat an insane amount of aphids, and you know what else? Ants eat these aphids, and on top of that, they are breeding right here. As you can see, those eggs are going to hatch, and the nymphs, which are immature ladybugs, they're going to eat way more aphids than the adults, thousands and thousands, and that's going to manage everything. So it's not something that I have to worry about or freak out about. I just make sure that I'm practicing the things that I want to practice and that are important to me, and then the ecosystem basically rewards us by helping us to manage pests and keeping our plants healthy, and that's something that's just priceless, and it's beautiful. It saves us a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort. Now, you can come out here and spray this down, but I'm not going to. These insects are out here, they're doing their job. They are taking care of our pests, and in return they get these delicious snacks that they love and enjoy, and a future place to lay their eggs and raise their young. And I think that's a really pretty and beautiful thing. And we still get our blackberries and everything else without having to worry about too much pest management. And I'll actually walk over this way a little bit and show some of the flowers. So you can see this is the normal blackberry bed that's by some of the compost bins, and look at this. That's just one of many blackberry flowers. Isn't that beautiful? And that's what that unopened bud that you saw right by those ladybugs is. It's an unopened blackberry flower, and they're maintaining all of the aphids on it. And you can see just how delicate they are and all the new buds forming, and that's this year's growth. And the cool thing about these blackberries is they produce on this year's and last year's growth. So if you don't clip your blackberries back, you get a huge harvest. Now, anyone that was watching knows that I did clip my blackberries back pretty significantly just a couple of months ago, and actually transplanted a lot of them. So here again, you see this is this year's growth producing all of these beautiful buds, and right here, this is last year's growth, and it is also producing all of these amazing flower buds. And some are pink, as you can see right there, and some are white, which is one of my favorite things, because before I started growing this variety, I'd never seen pink blackberry flowers. And dewberries, which is a cousin of a blackberry, grow wild all over Southeast Texas. So it's been really cool to kind of see. Now, I just let this one vine out, even though it is technically a bush plant. And you can see once again over here, here is another ladybug. It's a little bit blurry, but sure enough, it's there hanging out, helping to manage the pest right there. So that's really cool. And it's awesome that there's such a big ecosystem here, and all of these flowers are producing. Here's another one hanging out here, kind of helping. And that they found a place where they can do everything and complete their life cycle and keep coming back year after year. So many times we buy these online and then are surprised that they don't come back. Well, they eat the aphids and then they go away. But if you create an ecosystem where they can thrive, then they don't just eat the aphids and run away. They eat the aphids and stay around for next year. There's one. I've never seen one quite that large or that looks like that before. That is quite interesting. I'm not sure if that's a ladybug at all or if it's an Asian beetle, because we have both. It's pretty good size. So below these blackberries, we have even more turnips growing and even lettuce, because we do mix our crops together. So none of the space is wasted. And here is another different type of lettuce plant. And they're all growing and it's just prospering under this blackberry. And here's some arrowhead lettuce. This is a second year plant. Here is the blackberry plant that we transplanted. It's popping back up because part of its roots are still alive there. Some arugula. There's just everything, and it's growing together, and it's all benefiting each other. And it's so beautiful to watch and to kind of learn this style of gardening where you're not having to worry about pests or anything else. It's just kind of taking care of itself. Look at that. That's amazing. You can see on this side, the blackberries are producing just as well, just as beautifully. All these flowers. It's so amazing to watch. And then on top of that, down below, we have these strawberry plants that I planted last year, and they kind of die down during the summer, and then when it warms back up, now we do need something to protect them because you can see the birds are kind of finding the first strawberry already. But just how many strawberries are on this? That is absolutely amazing. Now this particular strawberry is a seascape strawberry, and it is beautiful, beautiful strawberry, and I'm amazed at how well it's doing. And I did just order 25 Chandler strawberry plants, so I'm waiting for those to come in. It may have been 20, but I think it's 25. I ordered them from Gurney Seeds, so I am waiting for those to come in. And I'll take you down here and show you that there are also strawberry there and here, and it's all growing in the same space I've been showing. See, that's the turnips, all of the blackberry plants, and if I turn around, you'll even see the blackberries that I transplanted from these in a video a couple weeks ago. Well, it's actually probably been about 6 weeks ago now. So they're just kind of doing their own thing, and I know a lot of people are curious, and I'm sure I'll always have comments about, why don't I participate more in pest control? Why don't I do things this way or that way? Well, this is the way that I love to do things. I get to enjoy the wildlife in my garden. I get to honor the insects that are helping us out. That's really cool, and I think that's really special. And I also think it's important to know that food doesn't have to be perfect. Your carrots don't have to be like you see in the supermarket. Your blackberries don't have to grow the way that you see it grown at major colleges and everything else. It's okay to think differently. It's okay to manage pests differently than other places. I mean, imagine the horror if they saw all of these ant beds in my garden, but if they don't bother me, I don't bother them. I'm not gonna spread arsenic all over my garden because that's just not something that I'm about. You know, it's not something I want to purposefully eat. It's not something I want in my garden. It's just not me, and that's why I choose to garden the way that I do. And I hope that everyone else finds the courage to garden the way that's important to you and what works for you. And know that it's going to take time to find what works for you, and you get to share that experience with everyone else. Now, are the plants perfect? No. Look, I cut all of these turnips back. That's how I got part of those 7 gallons of turnips in the past 2 weeks, and turnip greens that I've been eating with my family. And there are 7 bags in my freezer of just turnip greens that are completely stuffed, and then the oxygen taken out of them. So that's pretty amazing to be able to do all this and then still see those beautiful insects helping manage my garden. So I hope that you take away something from this, and I hope that it kind of explains more why we garden the way that we do. I hope it kind of encourages you to not focus solely on pest control, but focus on building a space that you love and you enjoy, and learning different ways that your garden can kind of help manage itself, because I guarantee you, you're not going to regret that. You're not going to regret creating ecosystems that in the long run keep you from having to work overtime. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it kind of explains more why I think and garden the way that I do, but to me, this is really cool.